From Toronto, Canada, The Conspiracy Show with Richard Syrett.
Welcome to the Audio Imaginarium. Great to have you aboard. And I feel like a United Church minister about to officiate at a wedding. You know, when they usually begin with a series of announcements before they begin the nuptials. Please, no confetti inside the church. Let's thank all the women in the kitchen for putting out such a nice spread and all that sort of. Anyway, here are my announcements, and they're important, so have a listen. First of all, Tim Spreen is here. Albert, the intern, is here. Our HOAs, our HOA, our Hangout on Air, is, I'm getting the thumbs up from Albert. We are back up and running this week. At least you can see me in studio. And our special guest host, Richard, and I'll talk about Richard here, the other Richard, in just a moment. If you want to watch the live stream of the program, just go to my Twitter feed, at Richard Syrett. Click on the tweet near the top of the feed that says HOA. It's a link there. Just click on it, and you're in. And I just mentioned our guest host, Richard Astley, is here. He's our contest winner. Wave to the good people, Richard. There he is. He is our contest winner from our live stage event back in April, Follow the Truth 2. Richard won a dinner with yours truly, and I don't know if that's much of a prize, but he sat through dinner, and here he is in studio. We had a lovely battered fish dinner just down the street at the local here in Liberty Village. And also, Richard Astley gets to co-host tonight's program, and he helped put the program together as well. And he wanted to talk about Bigfoot. And we will, in just a few moments. Dr. Melba Ketchum, one of the lead scientists with the Sasquatch Genome Project, is standing by. Can't wait to get into that. But Richard, you're in an interesting line of work, Richard. First of all, say hello to the listeners and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, everybody. Just want to say Happy Father's Day to my dad.
Please, thank you. Yes, I forgot to do that. Happy Father's Day to everyone out there.
I look forward to talking about Kubrick and Bigfoot as well.
All right. So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I just do a little bit of work in the funeral supply industry out of the Durham region.
Funeral supplies. That's a much-needed, it's recession-proof.
That's it, yeah. Everybody dies, unfortunately. That's one of the facts of life.
All right. Interesting line of work. Okay. Now, so why the fascination with Bigfoot?
Bigfoot came to me out of the blue. I'm a fan of Les Stroud, Survivor Man, and he's a guy that goes out in the middle of wilderness, and he all of a sudden said, hey, I've heard some things, and I want some explanations.
All right. Well, I get a lot of emails. People want to know more about, they want more shows on Bigfoot, and we will deliver in just a few moments. First, one more announcement. I want to spend a few moments here also commending a huge supporter of The Conspiracy Show. We are now approaching our 6th year here on Zoomer Radio, our flagship station here in Toronto. Moses Neimer is also the driving force and the creator of Idea City, which takes place every year in Toronto over a 3-day period. I had the honor of speaking at Idea City back in 2012. It's billed as Canada's premier meeting of the minds, and it certainly is that. And the mighty Aphrodite and I were able to attend 2 out of the 3 days that just wrapped up on Friday. In fact, let me tell a tale out of school. We pulled our twin boys out of school on the Friday so they could attend. It was just an amazing lineup of compelling, captivating, and controversial speakers, just pillar to post, just jam-packed, dense with information. And I especially appreciated and enjoyed the climate change skeptics, which is a topic near and dear to my heart. We're not going to delve into that tonight. We'll save that for another night. But anyway, kudos to Moses Neimer and everyone at Idea City for an absolutely amazing 3 days, and I can't wait for next year, and hopefully you can attend as well. One more thing before I introduce you to our Bigfoot specialist. We are officially unveiling the Conspiracy Show app tonight. I've been mentioning this to you over the last couple of months. It's now available at Google Play for you Android users, and iPhone users can get it through iTunes. It's a free download. And special thanks to Sharon Forster, who designed and developed the app. Albert, of course, to you as well, Albert, well done. This was sort of his pet project. And Albert will be monitoring the app tonight for your questions and comments. You can listen to the show, listen to past shows, post questions, comments, upload pictures, participate in polls, and much more. It's just like the website, only better. Far more interactive. So now you can take the Conspiracy Show with you wherever you go. That's the Conspiracy Show app, available now, right now, on Google Play and iTunes, and it's absolutely free. Okay, we are going to talk Bigfoot for the next 45 minutes. You know, we've sort of tackled this issue from a lot of different aspects. We've had Bigfoot trackers on. We've had witnesses. We've had field researchers and authors. But now, as I say, a slightly different angle. A doctor of veterinary medicine and the president and director of DNA Diagnostics, Inc., a genetics laboratory geared to state-of-the-art genetic testing, to talk about the Sasquatch Genome Project. Dr. Melba Ketchum has made a DNA analysis of possible Bigfoot hair samples, which was leaked to the public before the publication of her peer-reviewed paper. Dr. Ketchum attended Texas A&M University, where she received her doctorate in veterinary medicine after 5 years at the university, and she had a veterinary practice until she founded DNA Diagnostics. She's the president and founder, as I mentioned, of DNA Diagnostics, and that company, established in 1985, has become a leader in all types of DNA testing, including human and animal forensics, human and animal paternity and parentage testing, disease diagnostics, trait tests, animal and human identity testing, species identification, and sex determination. And it's a great pleasure to have Dr. Melba Ketchum right here on The Conspiracy Show. Dr. Ketchum, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Very well. And my special co-host tonight, Richard Astley. Say hello as well.
Hello, Melba.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Dr. Ketchum, this is your first time on the program. I know you have talked far and wide about this. I've listened to you speak to my colleague at Coast to Coast, George Knapp, on the subject, and was fascinated by it. But for our listeners here, your first time, just give us a little bit of the backstory about how the Sasquatch Genome Project got started and what your objectives were.
Well, there was no objective at first. I didn't believe they existed. So I just kind of backed into this. It wasn't anything intentional. We'd have people send us samples, every year, and we'd just test them for species identity, but we never got anything interesting until, 8 or 9 years ago now, whenever I was asked to do some analysis for, at that time, Destination Truth, which was a television show on the Sci-Fi Channel. And they would go around getting samples, and they gave us a Bhutan Yeti sample. Now, there wasn't enough DNA for anything conclusive, but we had non-human hair that gave human DNA, and that shouldn't happen. So about that time, North American Bigfoot Search sent some samples in, and some of them were from eyewitness encounters, and we tested them also. And once again, it was non-human hair giving human test results on mitochondrial DNA, and that's the maternal or the mother's lineage.
Right, mitochondrial, right.
Yes, and that, like I say, human hair is obvious. You can tell it, and this was not. It looked like, kind of like wavy horse mane hair. It was, much more coarse.
So the mitochondrial DNA was saying what?
It's 100% modern human.
Modern human, and the
nuclear DNA.
The nuclear DNA, which would be the male, the father.
As we progressed into the process, when we started getting that, we got a lot of unknown sequence in addition to some human sequence. So it was a mixture. We call it a mosaic of human and unknown DNA.
Now, as a skeptic, you mentioned initially you did not believe.
No.
When you started getting these...
I would just laugh when I'd get these samples. It was a joke around the lab.
And when you started to get these results, mitochondrial DNA showing
well, then I got
human...
curious. I had no idea what I was dealing with, but I got curious because I knew they shouldn't be. And we did a lot of forensic testing, so, we knew how to keep the contamination. You wash the hair thoroughly with chemicals and vortex at huge thousands of RPMs per minute with these little vortexers that you have, and it shakes any excessive DNA off other than just what's on the hair. What is part of the hair, I should say.
But excuse me, Dr. Ketchum, but when you're receiving samples from third party out in the field, how then can you assure its provenance, I guess?
Well, the thing is, it doesn't. This is the whole point of DNA testing. You can pull any DNA from anywhere and pretty well identify it, unless it's something that hasn't been seen before. That's the whole point of testing it. When you do species identification, which is done with the mitochondrial DNA, it tells you what the source of the DNA was.
But it can't be tainted or manipulated by someone before they bring it to you.
Well, the only thing they can do is tell me it's a cat, and we test it. It turns out to be dog, and we say no, it's a dog.
Right.
I mean, it's going to show what it is, regardless of what kind of sample or where you get it. I mean, you could go anywhere and get any kind of DNA sample, and you not even know what it is. And when you run the species identity test on it, it'll tell you what it came from.
Now, when you say the
or it'll tell you if there's more than one species in there too.
Right. Now, when you say the mitochondrial DNA was clearly 100% human female.
Yes.
But the nuclear DNA was undetermined? What does that mean exactly?
It means that the way you determine things nowadays is there are these huge databases of sequence from people that have sequenced different DNA from all over the world and all different types of organisms. And you do what's called a blast search, where you plug in your sequence and search against all these millions and millions of sequences. And what it matches closest to is what will come up when you search it. And so, normally you'll get hits, off of whatever it is or whatever it's closest to. But we were getting no hits at all. It was completely unknown, which was, blew our minds.
I can imagine. I can't imagine.
I outsourced. I didn't believe it. And I knew that, nobody's going to believe one lab. So we assembled 12 different labs, and we sent these samples out as blind studies. They didn't know what they were testing. They thought they were just testing humans.
Right.
And I even have an email on the website where one of the PhDs wrote me and said, this doesn't match anything. Have you discovered a new species? I have that actually on the website. People can go read the letter.
That's SasquatchGenomeProject.org, and we will continue our conversation with Dr. Melba Ketchum, along with my co-host Richard Astley, right here on The Conspiracy Show. Don't you dare go away.
Don't be afraid of the dark. The Conspiracy Show with Richard Syrett.
Welcome back. Dr. Melba Ketchum is with us from the Sasquatch Genome Project, SasquatchGenomeProject.org, the website. Let me crib from that website. It has been a long and tedious battle to prove that Sasquatch exists. We've had the proof for 8 years now, but building enough data to convince mainstream science has taken a lot of time. Trying to publish took almost 2 years. It seems mainstream science just can't seem to tolerate something controversial, especially from a group of primarily forensic scientists and not famous academians, aligned with large universities, even though most of our sequencing and analysis was performed at just such facilities. We encountered the worst scientific bias in the peer review process in recent history. I'm calling it the Galileo effect, she writes. Several journalists wouldn't even read our manuscript when we sent them a pre-submission inquiry. Another one leaked our peer reviews. We were even mocked by one reviewer in his peer review. We finally found a new journal that accepted our paper and had it peer-reviewed using blind peer reviews, which we passed. However, we had to acquire this journal when they backed out of publishing our manuscript 5 minutes before it was to go live in order to keep our passing peer reviews obtained by this journal. We chose to do this rather than spend another 5 years just trying to find another journal to publish and hoping that decent, open-minded reviewers would be chosen. We renamed the journal as per our agreement De Novo. The new journal is aimed at offering not only more choices and better service to scientists wanting to submit a manuscript, but also reviewers and editors that will be fair, unlike the treatment we received. Lastly, we have adhered to all of the standards set in the link below for author-owned journals. And you can click on that link. It's called publicationethics.org. There's a big, long URL there. And again, that can be found on the homepage at SasquatchGenomeProject.org. Dr. Melba Ketchum is with us. Now, I read that, your words, Dr. Ketchum, just to give people a quick sort of understanding of the obstacles that you faced in trying to publish these studies, and to illustrate something that I've long maintained, and that is how politicized the whole peer review process is. That's considered sort of the gold standard of a study, that it gets published in a peer review, but not necessarily so. So at what point did you decide you had enough information, it was time to go public with this? Give us the timeline there.
Oh, well, it's probably about 4 or 5 years ago now. We had sequenced a lot of different points on the nuclear genome, and we had whole genomes from the mitochondrial DNA, and we had, tons of samples. We had over 100 samples in the study, and we went to Nature with it because it is a Nature-worthy, a new species and all, you go to your bigger journals. Plus,
right.
It had to be a multidisciplinary journal because we used more than just the DNA. We used several different disciplines, including electron microscopy, histopathology, and other disciplines in order to prove our point. Anyway, at first the reception seemed cordial enough, and they sent the paper out for peer review, and they turned it down the first time. The reviewer one more or less passed it, said he thought there was something there, but it needed corrections. Well, I talked to the editor. The editor basically told me that, if you do, we'll take it back again if you'll do every single thing the peer reviewers ask you to do. Well, the first one liked it. The second one, he didn't read it because he asked for whole mitochondrial genomes, and we already had them in the paper. So he didn't read the paper.
Obviously.
The third one made a crack to the effect. Now, his English was not good, but it was obvious what he was saying. He says, "You mean to tell me Caucasian woman go run around in woods with unknown hominid and have baby and give there too? I don't think so."
But that's what the DNA clearly shows.
And then the fourth one said, "I want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5." So we went back. We did everything reviewer 1 wanted. We did everything reviewer 2 wanted, plus you're supposed to answer them. And those peer reviews are on our website, so you can read how ludicrous they are because they've got my answers to it, referring to the different parts of the paper where the stuff they were requesting was already in the paper, the data and all. And then the third one, there wasn't a lot I could say to him because he just said, he just mocked us. But we tried to address it as professionally as possible. And then the fourth one, we went in and we did everything he asked us to do. So basically, when the reviewers give you a list of things to do and you meet every one of them, generally they publish your paper. But they asked for whole genomes, which we went back and got 3 of them, not just one. They asked for a whole genome. We did 3. We came back about a year later because it took us that long to add the genomes and all. And this time they sent them to the same reviewers, which was didn't make me very happy, but they did it. And the first one suddenly says he's not qualified to review it and he'll just accept what everybody else says. The second reviewer still didn't read the paper because he said we had no materials and methods when they were in the supplemental data per the editor that told me to put it there because the paper was so long. He also kept referring to it as ancient DNA, which it's not ancient DNA. It was fresh-dried DNA or fresh-frozen DNA, whatever the case may have been.
So clearly the game is rigged. And
Oh, yeah. And the third one just said he didn't believe it. It had to be contaminated. And the fourth one wouldn't review it again.
And so the upshot of this is you finally found a journal willing to publish, but 5 minutes before it was to go live,
they backed out because they basically said it would kill their journal if they published something like this.
So you bought the journal?
Yep, basically.
And published?
Well, the investor, Wally Herson, bought it.
So you published?
Yes, we published with the reviews that the other journal got because we didn't want any part of getting the reviews ourselves. We wanted it to be a completely unassociated with me or with, our group of scientists because we wanted it to be fair. And we got that. And as a result, Zoo Bank actually published our name that we requested, which was Homo sapiens cognatus.
That's what you're calling this?
Yes.
That's what you're calling Sasquatch. That's the scientific name.
It means blood relatives, because they are. They're part human.
Well, we'll delve into that a little bit. Let me introduce once again my special co-host tonight, Richard Astley. And Richard, take it away. The floor is yours, sir.
I was just wondering if...
Sorry, let me try that again. Take two.
I was just wondering if have you ever seen Sasquatch out in the wild or had an encounter at all?
Yes, I have.
Oh.
Multiple times.
What was your favorite one, or what was the one that enlightened you the most?
There's a female that I really liked. That she's just very sweet and likes to, we've had some interaction, and it's been a lot of fun.
At what point? At what point in your journey here did you encounter Sasquatch?
Approximately 2 years before the paper published, I kept getting calls from people, and they refer to themselves as habituators. It's people that interact with them. And, when they first started calling, I thought this was crazy. I didn't believe, what was going on. But some ones that live not too far from me kept on until I went out with them to an area where they were. And I actually saw 5 the first time that I was out with people. I saw 1 in daylight, and then, I saw 5 at night. I don't know if the one was still one of them. So, it was a really interesting day, and it was mind-blowing to say the least. And after that, then I ended up with a lease site where they live, and I've had quite a bit of interaction with them. It can be quite entertaining at times.
And what part of the country is this again?
In Texas.
In Texas.
Yeah, anywhere where there's heavy forest, there's a lot of them. They live right under our noses, but they're able to conceal very well, and therefore most people aren't even aware of them, even though they're there.
All right, before I throw it back over to Richard Astley, let me just follow up here. Give me a physical description: height, weight, physical features.
The first one I saw, the full body on, was 8 feet tall because we marked it on the tree that he was standing in front of. He was very square built. His face was not haired, but it was at night, so I could just see the moonlight shining on his face. I couldn't make out his features real well, regrettably. But, it was clearly what he was. His shoulders were very broad. Like a linebacker, except more so. And he probably weighed about 500 or 600 pounds, if I had to guess.
And matted hair, fur, how would you describe it?
No, neat. Some of them are matted, but, most of them take pretty good care of themselves. And, they can be very well-groomed.
How about their teeth? Do they have canines?
Yeah, some of them have canines that are a little bit, I want to say fangs, not really quite that bad, but we've got a picture of one on the Sasquatch Genome Project site, and she's got little canines. But their teeth are quite similar to ours, actually. And, like I say, she's a good representation. Some of them, though, have hair on their face. Some of them have partial hair, like the patty film. Some of them have no hair on their face. It just depends on the individual.
All right, let me hand it over
again. They're like
again.
people. There's a million of them.
Seriously, a million of them?
Well, that's figuratively, but
okay.
I'm sure there's hundreds of thousands of them worldwide.
That's remarkable. Richard Astley, over to you again.
With the genome you found, is it possible for crossbreeding at all, or was there signs of any crossbreeding at all in the past?
There's definitely been crossbreeding. It's in the historical record in a large way, especially in Native American and First Nation peoples, where oftentimes their maidens would be stolen by the Sasquatch, and sometimes they would escape and they'd come back with a hybrid baby. And in Russia, there's the famous story of Zena and Quit, where it was a female that was captured, and she had offspring from human males. It seems that they're not. Some of them aren't the healthiest; others are. It just kind of depends. I think they're different enough from us that sometimes the offspring don't live as long as they could, or maybe aren't quite as healthy as they could be. But others have gone on and had families and lived normal lives.
And the the hybrid, the mitochondrial DNA showing human female.
Yes.
What do you believe then, although it's undetermined, what are we talking about here in terms of the male counterpoint, the father? Is it Cro-Magnon man? Is it Neanderthal? What is it?
Well, it didn't appear to be Neanderthal or Denisovan because we didn't get hits with that like we should have if it had been. So it's going to be an unknown species for sure. One that's not been, sequenced at this point.
Something like Gigantopithecus?
But, they're getting these all the time. I mean, there's if you read any of the science that comes out over the last, 2 or 3 years, there's just like the Denisovan individual out of Russia. That type of hominid actually has unknown DNA that they don't know where it came from. Human beings are hybrids of Neanderthal and Denisovan for the most part. Only the African population tends to not be. But the Caucasians have up to 3 or so % Neanderthal. I mean, really, the Sasquatch are no different than we are in that they're a hybrid, just like we are. They just have more of an unknown type of individual in them than they do human. And I think really it's because the human has been somewhat bred out because of we're the weaker species over the years.
Right. And how far back does this go? Is it 15,000 years? Did I read correctly?
Well, it depends on which of the genomes. I mean, which of the mitochondrial genomes you're looking at. We have some as young as 13,000 years. I think the oldest one was 26,000 years as far as the when that particular haplotype came into existence.
And how many species or subspecies are there of Sasquatch based on your
there's some generalities. I mean, there are some variants, but look at human beings. We have a lot of variants too. We have all our different races, and it's kind of the same thing with Sasquatch. I mean, it's like down south they're called skunk apes, and they're a little bit smaller a lot of times and a little more primitive looking. And Pacific Northwest, you get some really large ones. Of course, I mean, we've got some large ones around here, too, so can't say it completely. But there are different variants.
Okay. And, Melba, we will take a timeout. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back and resume our discussion on the Sasquatch Genome Project with Dr. Melba Ketchum, Richard Astley, special guest host in studio. My name is Richard Syrett. Don't go away.
When you look at the sky, ever wonder if someone's looking back? This is The Conspiracy Show with Richard Syrett.
And welcome back. The Sasquatch Genome Project, and we've linked up to that website at richardsyrett.com. Just scroll down and find our guest who joins us, Dr. Melba Ketchum. Click on her name, and that'll take you right to the Sasquatch Genome Project. And she is the president and director of DNA Diagnostics. This is a genetics lab geared to the state-of-the-art genetic testing, and she has made a DNA analysis of possible Bigfoot hair samples, and this has been published in a peer-reviewed journal. Before I throw it back over to my special guest host, Richard Astley, we were talking about numbers of, the different, species differentiation in different parts of the United States. Now, what size, how many adults, Sasquatch adults, would be required for a viable population, a viable breeding population, in your estimation?
I mean, there's thousands of them, so there is a viable breeding population already.
Okay, so at least we're talking about in the thousands.
Huge, yeah, high thousands. I mean, one location alone, just a very small area, I know there were 9, there's 11 at another. I mean, we're talking, there's thousands of them. There's they're not endangered.
All right. What is the problem with the scientific community to embrace these findings? For example, back in the late 19th, early 20th century, we didn't have sort of scientific confirmation of the existence of, I believe it was the lowland or the mountain gorilla. This, up until this point was some, legendary, fabled creature. However, when we had that scientific evidence, it was, it was embraced and accepted as self-evident. What is the stumbling block here for the scientific community? Why won't they get behind this?
I think because there's such a stigma associated with it, with all the hoaxing that's gone on over the years, and the fact that nobody has brought forward a viable body. Well, I mean, there's been bodies, but the government has taken them. So it's like, we can't really see it, touch it, feel it, so and these people have hoaxed it, so everything has to be a hoax about it. And that's just not true. I mean, there's literally, I would bet 100,000 sightings over over North America. I know one organization has over 30,000 reports that they've cataloged. So, that many people can't be wrong.
You mentioned that bodies have been found. That's always the big...
there have been.
How do we know this?
It's been a cover-up. It really has.
But do you have this on good authority? I mean, how do you know?
Yeah, I do have it on good authority.
Can you expand on that a little bit? Are you able to?
Oh, I've talked to a couple of government officials that came clean with me. I can't go any further with their names or anything, but, they have bodies.
One of the questions that people often ask is, why don't we find more bodies?
Because they bury their dead.
I was going to ask, do they bury their own dead?
Yeah, they do. They do. They take care of things. So, they don't want to be found. They don't want to really be bothered with us, and I don't blame them. I mean, actually, they've got a better lifestyle than we do because they live in a more or less idyllic society in some ways. They don't, have all the difficulties we do or the stress that we do with our existence.
Can they become aggressive?
Yes, there are some bad ones. There are some cannibals.
Interesting.
And you only have to go as far as the Missing 411 books to read about some of that. And
Right. Okay, let me turn it back over to Richard Astley, my co-host.
In addition to the fur samples you've got, have you received other types of samples? And does any one of those stand out in particular as strong proof?
I'm having a little trouble hearing you.
In addition
What about the samples?
You received your fur samples. I was wondering what other types of samples you've received.
We received all different kinds of samples. We had saliva, we had hair, we had urine, we had, we've got bones that we're getting ready to work on now. We've been raising money to have genomes done on skeletal samples of giants that may or may not be related to Sasquatch, as well as some more Sasquatch remains that we have, alleged Sasquatch remains, like from the Zeta and Quit Russian samples. We have them. We want to get those whole genomes on them and what have you. So we've been working very hard and diligently to raise enough money to get that done. And we've got a good start. So we're going to get some of these tested. We have red-headed giants, which the Native Americans, the Paiutes, there's a difference of opinion whether they're actually Sasquatch or whether the red-headed giants are another tribe of Native Americans that are very tall and red-headed. So we're hoping to get to the bottom of all this in the not very distant future.
All right, Melba, stay put, and we will reconvene on the other side. Dr. Melba Ketchum, the Sasquatch Genome Project, right here on The Conspiracy Show. My name is Richard Syrett.
The truth is not out there. It's right here. The Conspiracy Show with Richard Syrett.
And we are back with Dr. Melba Ketchum, who is with the Sasquatch Genome Project, and she's made a DNA analysis of possible Bigfoot hair samples. I say possible. You would say 100% definite. Correct, Melba?
Yes, actually, I'm quite sure what we have there. It's mammalian hair. It's, some of our samples came from eyewitness sources. So that adds a lot of credibility.
Are you able to break down the mitochondrial DNA to determine, for example, the race? Are we talking about Native American? Are we talking about what?
Well, it was a combination of a lot of different ones, but most of them had origins back in the Middle East. or Europe, but of course, the Middle Eastern types are older as they spread into Europe, so they all have kind of a root race of the T2s, which are Ts and T2s, which were Middle Eastern types. We had, I think, 3 or 4 Native American types. We had, I think, 3 black haplogroups, but the rest, we kind of wondered if maybe, since they came from the south of the U.S., if maybe they were a hybrid from potentially slaves that might have escaped into the wilderness and were captured by them and, ended up having offspring. Because we don't know when the hybridization occurred on these, obviously. So, but generally the Middle East seems to be the most prominent root source of all of these, because even the Native American samples came from those at one point.
All right. Richard Astley is just chomping at the video. I know he has another question here.
Les Stroud, he's a Canadian. He's got a show, Survivor Man, that airs about his exploits of surviving in the wilderness. He just did a recent series of investigating possible sightings, possible evidence of Bigfoot. I'm just wondering if his investigations has made any headway in the Bigfoot culture, or was there anything that he revealed that is now widely known? Good
question, Richard. So are you familiar with the work of Survivor Man Les Stroud?
I've heard of it, but I don't follow it.
Now, let me ask you about the Patterson-Gilman film, which is kind of I call it the Zapruder film of sort of the Sasquatch arena. Is that, in your estimation, legitimate, or is it a hoax?
I believe it's legitimate for a number of reasons. One, whenever you look at it closely, you can actually see she's got a muscle hernia on her right thigh, and it moves when she walks. And that is not something that somebody would think to fake. And there's a lot of, her gait is different from a human. There's been some very good work done on analysis of the gait, and it just can't be reproduced, plus the size on top of it. There's just a lot of different reasons that I believe it's real. Of course, once again, you've got all the conspiracy theories and people that have tried to, say it's a hoax and what have you. But there's a lot of science. There's been some documentaries even that have done some really nice work of showing how the locomotion is completely different than a person's, as well as, you've got this muscle hernia that everybody kind of overlooks for the most part. And to me, that was very telling because, that's something that you can see the muscle moving as she walks under there. It's where there's a tear in the covering of the muscle and allows it to bulge. It allows it to bulge through.
To me, one of the things that's very compelling is it does look very authentic. And if anyone has seen any of those cheesy B movies from that era in the '60s with the the gorilla that escapes the circus,
have the technology
they did not have those kinds of. And I believe there's a Hollywood special effects designer who just completed a 7-year investigation, and he concluded that it is authentic as well.
Yes, I've kind of followed that, and I'm in 100% agreement that, and plus I've seen them, and some of them look like that. They have the little cheeks showing, but the rest of their face is hair. That's back to the variation with them.
If this is all true, and you are 100% certain, this would have to constitute one of the greatest scientific discoveries of all time.
Well, we think it is, but, like I say, we have so many naysayers and so many haters out there that have, torn things down that I'm to the point that, it is what it is.
And so what is the next step then for you? I mean, what else needs to be, T's need to be crossed and so forth? What
well,
needs
we
to
want
be
to do some more testing on our skeletal samples, on our giants and coneheads and what have you, because, a lot of the Bigfoot have, the pointed heads. Not only that, but we want to go forward with, trying to compare and see, if there's anything in common there. And plus, we've got some more Sasquatch samples that I would like to get some confirmation genomes on. The more, the better. So, we're still in the process. Like I say, we're raising money to test some samples. We've got about 20 samples, and we've raised enough to test a few, but we want to try to get all of them tested so we can, compare everything at once and, basically kind of get to the bottom of all of it.
Would you be adverse to a humane live capture of...
I would be absolutely averse to it.
You would?
How would you like to be captured and poked and prodded and stuck and photographed?
No.
They're people.
That's a fair point, certainly. But is there not a humane way?
No.
No. Okay.
I mean, I wouldn't want to be guarded and studied. Would you?
Well, I'm just wondering if it would lead to an acceptance of this reality, then perhaps we could then begin to work on how do we protect these creatures.
They really don't need our protection. They're able to avoid us to a very large extent, or else we'd already had everything that we need as far as body and everything else. So I just, I'm not too worried about them. I mean, as many crazies as there are out there hunting them now, literally trying to kill a specimen, and they're not having success at this point. I'm not too worried about it. I think that, I've seen what they can do. I can see how they can blend in, and you can walk right up to one and not know it's there practically. It's like a special forces soldier in full camo that knows what they're doing. You can walk right past him and never know he's there. Well, they're the same way.
Is this something that is developed through evolution, or do they possess some particular type of skill? Or...
They have abilities I don't understand.
Can you give me an example?
And I've just seen them go away so quick that, it's just not normal. I mean, they have abilities humans don't. Let's put it that way. That's why they're so elusive. Get by with a lot of things that we don't.
Yes, so something that's on the order of 8 feet tall, 500 or 600 pounds, and able to, for the most part, avoid detection. It is remarkable. But
they can do it, and I've seen it. And they just, it's amazing. It's mind-blowing. And so that's why I don't worry about them like I used to. Before I knew very much about them, I was constantly worried about it. And I do want them protected for a number of reasons, not only because they're a type of people and we need to leave them alone. They leave us alone. Let's leave them alone.
Do they leave us alone? Do we need to be fearful?
I'm sorry, what?
Well, you say they leave us alone, but do they necessarily? I mean, do we have anything to be concerned about when we go walking in the woods?
Well, I never encourage anybody to go walking out of the city.
Oh, sorry, Melba, you were breaking up there a little bit. Can I get you to repeat?
Yeah, you were breaking up too.
Okay.
As I said, I don't encourage anybody to go walking in the woods by themselves because there's other things besides Sasquatch to worry about.
This is true.
And most of the Sasquatch will never bother you. They'll just avoid you. It's, there's certain hot spots where there's been some bad activity, usually up in the mountains and some pretty desolate areas. But for the most part, 90% of them are going to leave you alone and stay away from you, and you'll never know it. The most you'll get just about usually if you do go in the woods is a kind of a creepy feeling that somebody's watching you.
We hear a lot about this tremendous odor associated with...
Well, they have it and they don't have it. They can control it. I have experienced that.
It's a scent gland?
No, I don't think it's a scent gland at all. It's something that they can change it, though. It's strange. But, they do have an odor. Sometimes I think it's because they've physically been in contact with, it's their hygiene or other times it's kind of interesting whenever you have one that smells more like flowers. So it's not a consistent thing. Although I would say the most common smell you get is that of old dead garbage with a little bit of odor skunk on top of it.
Lovely. Now, has this essentially taken over your life? I mean, do you have time to run DNA diagnostics for other purposes, or have you been totally consumed by this?
We lost a whole lot of business when we did this. Mm-hmm. So we're not as large as we were thanks to my stupidity in going after this. I didn't realize the repercussions that it would have, and the fact that it would discredit me as a scientist by just doing a legitimate scientific study.
Do you regret it? Do you regret this?
Yeah, I regret it. I'd never do it again. I just want to get finished with it.
And put it behind you. Is that even possible? I mean, how do you...
I don't know if it's possible because the haters just don't give up. But, you know, it's been a big disappointment. It really has, because I thought it was so exciting at first that we had found a new species and one that was actually a blood relative of ours, was extinct, living at the same time we are, and that was huge. And to have it so poorly received and what have you, and to be laughed at by my peers has not been fun. And, you know, yeah, I regret it. I was naive. I didn't think that would happen. I thought if you did good science, it would, you know, go smoothly out there.
Well, Dr. Ketchum, for what it's worth, I think you're incredibly courageous, and I applaud you, and I wish you great success. How can we help? Give us an assignment.
Well, an assignment would be to help us get these genomes tested, get them all done, because, you know, a lot of people have said, oh, we need a type specimen. They want to go out and kill one so they have a type specimen. Well, for instance, if these giant samples we have turn out to be, you know, in line with what we've already got genetically, we have a type specimen, and that will really nail it. And the same with the Xena and Quit. If they turn out to truly be Sasquatch and Sasquatch hybrid, then we'll be able to hear our skulls that came from these, and we have a type specimen once again, which, you know, makes it a lot more difficult for the scientific community to ignore.
All right, so people can go to SasquatchGenomeProject.org, and there is a funding tab they can click on and help out?
Yes, and, you know, like I say, because we also have, like I say, quite a few coneheads from Peru, the elongated skull people, and like I say, my original interest in them was because, once again, a lot of the Sasquatch have similar head shape.
Right. Listen, we're out of time.
So, you know, we've got a variety of samples, and, you know, we need to see if they're interrelated or not. If nothing else, I think we'll get some very interesting findings.
Indeed. Dr. Ketchum, thank you so much.
Thank you.
SasquatchGenomeProject.org. My website, RichardSyrett.com. Say hello on Twitter @RichardSyrett. And as always, follow the truth.